400 tons crossed a sea you can't reach. Yesterday morning, April 17th, at exactly 6:42 a.m., a Russian roll-on roll-off cargo vessel arrived at an Iranian port carrying the largest single military resupply package since this war ignited 49 days ago. And the route it took, completely beyond American interdiction capability. I'm Kane Shimatsuka, and what I'm about to show you isn't speculation. It's satellite-verified proof that the war you think is winding down is actually being fueled by an expanding coalition using supply corridors Washington cannot physically touch. Let me walk you through what just happened, because the implications are darker than anything you'll hear on mainstream coverage. The Volga Bogatyr departed Astrakhan in southern Russia on April 14th, transit time, 62 hours across 1,200 kilometers of the Caspian Sea. This isn't some back-channel smuggling operation. This is industrial-scale military logistics operating in plain sight through a maritime zone where no Western naval forces exist. The Caspian is landlocked, bordered by Russia, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Iran, and Azerbaijan. No American destroyers patrol those waters. No carrier strike groups monitor the shipping lanes. It's a closed system, and Russia just demonstrated it can move hundreds of tons of war material across it without a single obstacle. Here's what was on that ship. Maxar satellite imagery captured at 7:18 a.m. shows military trucks driving directly off the vessel's stern ramp onto Iranian soil. Armored vehicles, artillery components, crates stacked on flatbed trailers. The convoy stretched nearly 2 kilometers heading south toward Tehran. Western intelligence assessments, cross-referenced with signals intercepts and Russian export patterns, identified the cargo, spare parts for T-72 main battle tanks, components for BMP infantry fighting vehicles, thousands of 152mm artillery shells, replacement tracks and engines for armored vehicles. This wasn't symbolic support. This was operational restoration. Iran fields approximately 480 T-72 tanks. After 7 weeks of sustained airstrikes, fewer than 60% remain operational due to engine failures, track damage, transmission breakdowns. Russia just delivered the exact components needed to reverse that degradation: engines, transmission assemblies, track links, fire control systems. These are the logistical inputs that determine whether a tank moves or becomes a static metal obstacle. The BMP components follow identical logic. Iran operates over 400 BMP infantry fighting vehicles. When those break down, mechanized infantry loses mobility. Russia is ensuring that doesn't happen, but the artillery shells carry the most immediate tactical weight. Iran has been firing artillery in support of defensive positions across multiple sectors. 152mm shells are the standard caliber for Soviet-designed systems Iran operates. Thousands arrived yesterday. That represents weeks of sustained fire support capability restored in a single delivery. And it came through a route that bypasses every interdiction option the United States possesses. Now layer this into the broader pattern. On April 13th, China sent air defense components via cargo aircraft. April 14th and 16th, Russia sent ammunition and Panzer S-1 systems by air. April 16th, Pakistan sent Chinese-made missiles. April 17th, Russia sends 400-plus tons by sea. Air delivers precision components quickly. Sea delivers bulk cargo efficiently. Russia is now employing both methods simultaneously. And the countries involved aren't coordinating through formal alliance structures, but they're acting on the same timeline with the same objective: sustain Iran's capacity to fight, extend the conflict, bleed American resources. Every week this war continues is another week. American carrier groups remain deployed beyond scheduled rotations. Another $1 billion in munitions consumed. Another spike in oil prices that compounds economic pressure domestically. Another erosion of public support. The powers supplying Iran are betting that the United States will break before Iran does. They're betting on economics, logistics, political sustainability, and they're placing those bets openly because they know Washington has no effective countermeasures. The economic data validates their calculation. Brent crude is trading at $104 per barrel. American gasoline prices hit $4.12 per gallon yesterday. The Strait of Hormuz remains effectively closed to Western commercial shipping. Global supply chains are absorbing disruptions that compound daily. Goldman Sachs issued an updated projection on April 17th. If oil stays above $100 per barrel for another 3 weeks, demand destruction will trigger recessionary conditions in at least 4 G7 economies. That's not hypothetical modeling. That's quantified risk assessment from institutions that move trillions. Meanwhile, domestic political pressure is mounting. A Washington Post poll released yesterday showed 64% of Americans believe the war should end within 30 days, regardless of whether Iran agrees to negotiate. That's a 7-point increase from last week. Senator Chris Murphy delivered a floor speech calling the resupply operations a fundamental failure of American strategy. He stated the administration had no plan to counter external support for Iran. The White House responded with a statement reaffirming that Iran's military capacity has been significantly degraded and that diplomatic efforts to isolate Tehran are ongoing. Notice what that statement didn't address: the resupply shipments directly. That silence is becoming a structural pattern because there is no answer that doesn't expose the core weakness of the entire campaign. The operational plan assumed isolation. The reality is sustained external support from nuclear-armed powers using supply routes America cannot physically reach. Secretary of Defense Pete Hoekstra was asked about the Caspian Sea shipment during yesterday's press briefing. He declined to comment on specific intelligence assessments, stating the United States is aware of ongoing resupply efforts and is working with regional partners to address them. But here's the problem. There are no regional partners with leverage over the Caspian Sea. Azerbaijan is neutral. Kazakhstan is economically dependent on Russia. Turkmenistan avoids taking sides. Russia and Iran control the northern and southern coasts. The Caspian is a supply corridor the United States cannot close, and Russia just proved it can move hundreds of tons of military hardware across it without interference. Iran knows this. Intelligence reports indicate that tank repair facilities around Tehran and Isfahan have already received priority shipments of the spare parts delivered yesterday. Artillery units in western Iran are being resupplied with the 152mm shells. The systems will be operational within days. Tanks that were idle due to mechanical failure will be moving again. Artillery batteries that were rationing ammunition will resume sustained fire missions. And Iran's ground defense posture will be reinforced precisely when American planners believed it was nearing collapse. This is attritional warfare, not the kind measured in daily casualty counts or territory gained. The kind measured in supply tonnage, maintenance cycles, logistical endurance. And right now, Iran is being resupplied faster than the United States anticipated or planned for. The carrier strike groups deployed to the region are entering their 8th week at sea. The USS Gerald R. Ford has been deployed for 298 days, 58 days beyond its planned rotation. Crew fatigue is documented. Maintenance backlogs are growing. There's still no clear timeline for relief. The USS George H.W. Bush is conducting final pre-deployment workups off the Virginia coast. It won't arrive in theater for at least another 2 weeks, which means the Ford and the Abraham Lincoln remain on station indefinitely with no rotation plan. That overextension creates cascading vulnerabilities. The longer the deployment, the higher the risk of mechanical failure, accidents, degraded operational readiness. And every week those carriers remain tied down in the Middle East is a week they're unavailable for contingencies elsewhere. China is watching. The People's Liberation Army Navy is operating freely in the South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait while American naval power is concentrated in the Persian Gulf. That strategic distraction is exactly what Beijing wants, and Russia is helping deliver it by ensuring Iran stays in the fight. The math is brutally simple. American security assistance to Israel totals roughly $3.8 billion annually. The cost of interceptors, precision munitions, operational support consumed in the first 7 weeks of this war exceeds $12 billion. The defense industrial base cannot produce replacements fast enough to close that gap. Raytheon's current production rate for Patriot missiles is 550 units annually. At current consumption rates, that stockpile depletes in 16 months. Lockheed Martin projected it would need 38 months to scale production to meet sustained demand. The war is 7 weeks old. Meanwhile, Russia is delivering 400 tons of spare parts and ammunition in a single shipment using a cargo ship that cost a fraction of what a single American interceptor costs. The asymmetry favors the side willing to sustain a grinding war of attrition. And here's the dimension nobody in Washington wants to acknowledge. European allies are already recalculating their exposure. Germany's foreign minister issued a statement yesterday calling for immediate de-escalation talks. France abstained from the UN Security Council resolution condemning Iranian missile strikes. Italy quietly restricted access to naval facilities in Sicily for American logistics flights heading to the Gulf. These aren't coordinated defections. These are individual governments responding to domestic economic pressure that's becoming politically unsustainable. European diesel prices have risen 47% since the Strait of Hormuz closed. Industrial output across the Eurozone contracted for the 3rd consecutive week. The political tolerance for indefinite conflict is evaporating, and Russia knows it. The Volga Bogatyr wasn't just a cargo delivery, it was a message, a demonstration that the coalition supporting Iran can operate with impunity using infrastructure America cannot threaten. Every ton of equipment that crosses the Caspian Sea is a ton that didn't need to fly through airspace, where NATO might theoretically impose restrictions. Every artillery shell delivered by ship is one less vulnerability to aerial interdiction. Russia is building redundancy into Iran's supply chain, and that redundancy is the difference between a conflict that collapses from logistical exhaustion and one that grinds forward indefinitely. Yesterday, a Russian cargo ship crossed the Caspian Sea and delivered over 400 tons of military equipment to Iran. Tank parts, armored vehicle components, thousands of artillery shells. This was the largest single resupply shipment since the war began. It came through a route the United States cannot access. The coalition supplying Iran is expanding. The volume is increasing. The methods are diversifying. Oil is at $104 per barrel. The Strait of Hormuz remains closed. American carrier groups are in their 8th week at sea with no rotation plan. Public support has collapsed, and a Russian cargo ship just proved that the supply routes keeping Iran in this fight are beyond American reach. That's not a war winding down. That's a war being fueled by powers who benefit from its continuation, and the storm is just beginning.